Going live, going live. You're live. Look at that. Everything is running. Hey, everybody. Folks are here. Thanks for checking in. We've got about 10 minutes to go before we get started on the live stream. I'm still trying to get things set up on my side. Let's pop out the chat. Pop out the chat. Pop out the chat. That looks good. Stream health is excellent. Hope everybody's doing well. I think we've got some good questions for you today. We'll be starting shortly. Hello, chat room. How's everybody doing? We've got all new questions, of course, this month, as we always do. And it's been a while, hasn't it? I sort of skipped a week. Normally, we do this last week, and we didn't. What was going on? I don't know. There's chaos is what was going on. But I was able to work around it. You just schedule around the chaos. That's the way. That, I think, is the fundamental of chaos theory. That's all I know about chaos right there. It has nothing to do with chaos theory. I look forward to your cards and letters. Everybody doing well? Good to see you guys in the chat room. Thanks for joining us. We've got a bunch of good stuff coming today. I'm sort of getting back into the swing of the live stream. While you have been gone, we have been working on shooting video and shooting video and shooting video and shooting video. So there is a lot going on there. Well, we need to get the Q&A going. Here we go. Where are you joining from? There it is. That's the one. So now you're able to, I guess we should make it so we can see your results as well. So you could even plug in where you happen to be in the world. And you would find that. Can I put that up? I cannot. How about there? ProfessorMesser.com/QA. See, it's all about hitting the right buttons. It gets a little strange to press buttons and do things after not doing it for a while. It's muscle memory. It's something like that. So it's really, really good stuff. We got a lot to go through today. I think there is. I think it's all A+ today. We've got all A+ on Thursday. And then next week, we're doing another Tuesday, Thursday setup with Network Plus and Security Plus. So that is all good. Yeah, IT is all about pushing the right buttons, isn't it? That's why. How did I even get through all of that? Maybe just keep pushing buttons. Maybe it's not the right buttons. Maybe the right button just happens to be the last one you touch. That's the difference. Maybe that's what it is. Just keep pushing them. Eventually, I don't know that that's the best idea either. But sometimes that's the way it works. We have a lot to go through today. There is all new questions, as I mentioned. I haven't actually written the ones for Thursday yet. That's not entirely true. I was writing some yesterday, but we're not done writing the questions for Thursday. I guess that's it. Technically, I think I have enough, but I usually will create a certain number of questions, and then I know I'm covered. That way, if I want to do an extra one or two, we can do that. But that's sort of the way it works here. Is we just keep writing. We just keep writing questions. There's more questions to write. There's always a question to write. And I still have pop quizzes to do for next week, and there's all kinds of good content to write. So I'm working on those. Ace Hart says, just got a job as a field technician. That's where I started out. That was my very first out of college technical position, was a field service tech. And that is the one that I think is really, I look back on that one. I knew nothing. I really didn't know exactly what I was doing. I knew a little bit of what I was doing. I knew enough of what I was doing, but you learn so much, especially when you're on the road. You are a field service tech. There's nobody with you. There's nobody hanging out with you. You don't have people looking over your shoulder. You're going to the customer site. And that's really where all this happens. You sort of have to think on your own. You have to figure it out yourself. You have to decide, is this something I can resolve? Is this not something I can resolve? It is quite the ordeal sometimes to fix this mic. Hold on, everybody. It's not exactly where I like it. There we go. That's a little bit nicer. I know you can see which keys are so worn on this. It's not even the glare as much as it is just the keys on there. It is always that way. Oh, let's put this on. Let's put this. I apparently in 5 minutes have a live stream. I'm glad it's able to tell me that. But now, Mr. Watch, you're going into do not disturb mode. Are you sure? Yes, I am. Turn it on. Hey, Malk, good to see you again. Thanks for joining us from St. Vincent. It's a busy season. Yeah, I was thinking about you when Beryl came through. I'm glad everything's okay with you. Glad you survived. I don't know if everything's okay with you, but I'm glad you survived. It hit here pretty well too. Not here Florida, but here US. Hit pretty well. Florida missed it. For those of you not aware of the world headquarters of Messer Studios, we are in the great state of Florida. So that is it missed us completely for that one, thankfully. I guess not thankfully, you know what I mean. You know, it went to Texas and Mexico, and that was all bad. But here we were okay. We were all right. We were thinking about you guys. It is, and it was a nasty one. It was it's that time of the year. It's the time of the year for the crazy storms. So let's see. We got 4 minutes, 3 minutes and 30 seconds to go. We'll be getting straight ahead. Getting into our Core 1 study group in just a moment. Let's make sure macros are ready to go. Let's make sure those are up. Yep, those look good. Do I even have it in the right place? I do. Folks checking in from all over. We do have some Floridians who've checked in as well from Miami Gardens. Down there, used to live right there off 826 and 67th Avenue. We've got some folks checking in from Texas, Hawaii, South Africa, California, North Carolina, Atlanta. Philippines are here. Aventura. We're talking Florida. There they are. Down by the mall. Need to hop that train. Get down there. There's Huntsville and Illinois, Indiana, Jacksonville, Miami, Hialeah. Hialeah, HML. Represent. That's Morocco is here. Nigeria, Pensacola, Connecticut, Coconut Creek. See, we got the South Florida folks checking in. So good to have you here. We got, there's Canada. Hey, Canada, thanks for being here. I will let the Mrs. Professor Messer know that you have checked in. She always wants to know how the kinfolk are. And that's so nice to have everyone here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. And hopefully we'll learn something along the way. That's sort of how it goes. We'll have to see how. Let me do a last check on audio. Looks good. Last check on video. It's still working. Last check on the internet. You're up and running. Our numbers are good. Can't really see. I need to change this view. You can't really see the other side of the streamer now. It's sort of off the beaten path. I have a feeling I knocked it earlier this week, but we can't go there now. We have to keep rolling. We have to keep going. It's not a bad view. I mean, we fit everything in there, worn out keyboard and all. But we do have more over here. The important numbers here, by the way, I send YouTube about 6 megabits of signal going up. And I also, this 3% is the cache number. That is how much of the local video and audio is being cached before it's being sent to YouTube. 3% is about right. That's where we usually stay. If that number goes up, then it's not able to send information to YouTube. And that's when I know there's a problem. I'll look over here and see the number is 4, 5, 6, 20, 30, 50. I'll know we've got problems. But that's my first clue. We got less than a minute to go before we get things going. And we will get all of this ready. I think I've got, that's the last check. Can you make a video with my setup? I really need to. Right now, all I've got is the webpage at professormesser.com/studio. It's the link from the homepage. But I really do need to make one that says, here's how we do all of this craziness. Because it really hasn't changed in quite some time. It's a good setup at this point. I think what we need to do is just keep working on it. Well, with that, it's getting close here, the top of the hour. Let's see if we can get a green light on my presentation. I can. Oh, and people are asking, what do these streams entail? Well, I'm glad you asked, because you are about to find out. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the July 2024 Professor Messer 220-1101 Core 1A Plus study group. This is the study group where I ask you questions that come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. We get to see how much you really know about these objectives. These Q&As that we do every month are something that we're able to bring to you thanks to the work that you have been doing. Thank you so much for your support. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But if you are here live, if you are checking in with us here on the live stream and it has that little live icon at the top, then you can, of course, join us live by popping open a new browser window and visiting this URL. You can see that URL right here for professormesser.com/QA. That will get you to the questions that we have today. In fact, there is a question up on the screen right now that you can answer. It's a question that we call our rewind question because it is a question that we did last month. But I want to see just how much of this you might remember. This question from last month asks, after drive failure, a system administrator has replaced the bad drive in the array and restored from backup. Which of the following would describe this drive array? Would this be RAID 0 plus 1, RAID 0, RAID 1, RAID 5, or RAID 1 plus 0? Now, this is one where you can answer this question by visiting the URL that's on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA. and you can lock in this answer. As always, of course, please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. That's sort of our standing rule when we talk about the chat is that's what we want to do is not mention the answers or do anything else in the chat that might lead us to the answer. We're going to pretend we're taking this question as if it's on the exam itself. So have a look at that question. See if you can answer it. Go to professormesser.com/QA. and you can lock in your answer. See how well you do with that one. We're going to come back to this question in just a moment. First, I want to thank you for being here. We do one of these study groups every month. And of course, you can go back in time and look at our previous study groups. We've got plenty for you to go through for the Core 1. If you want to find those videos, look through those playlists, look through the complete training course that we publish every minute of every video online for free. You can find it on our YouTube channel. Go to professormesser.com/YouTube. Of course, we have daily pop quiz questions for A+. You can find those on the service formerly known as Twitter at professormesser.com/Twitter. I should really make /service formerly known as Twitter. We will get to that eventually. And of course, if you prefer your questions with a pretty picture, it's the same question, but on a different service. Go to professormesser.com/Instagram. I really need to put the link up here also to LinkedIn because if you are on LinkedIn, and you should be if you are in this business, make sure you go to LinkedIn and you bring up what the question is for that. You can find the same question there for that one too. It's just another way that you can find those pieces of information wherever you happen to be. Hopefully it's something that can help you through your studies. Also at this, in this live stream, at some point, I'm going to provide you with information on how you can earn 1 credit of a webinar category CEU. This is a way that you can have continuing education units. Now, this doesn't apply if you haven't earned your certification, but if you have one and you're using CEUs to renew, this might be something that can help you. So keep an eye out, or I guess an ear out for that. We'll talk more about that sometime during this first hour. So it's just a random moment where I will give you information and instructions on how you can send me an email or a message and receive back a CEU for this live stream. We will be talking today about the 220-1101 exam. This is an exam that is paired with the 220-1102. You have to pass both of those to earn your A+. This is an exam series that was released in April the 20th of 2022, and you can see that we probably are going to retire this exam series somewhere around October of 2025. So as we sit here in July of 2024, we have plenty of time to work on our studies. And we don't have forever, so make sure you don't wait until October of 2025. But as we sit here now, this is the current version of the exam. You're watching the right thing. You're studying from the right materials, as long as they have marked on them the 220-1101 and the 220, 1102. Those are the current versions of the A+ exams. We also want to let you know that both of those exams are 90 minutes in length, and you need to earn a 675 on a scale from 100 to 900 to pass your 1101 exam. The 1102 exam, you have to do a little bit better. You have to get a 700 as your score on a scale from 100 to 900. This is sort of the normal process of going through and earning your certification. And once you pass both of those with those passing scores, your certification is good for 3 years. So you can lock in this certification and then you're good for 3 years. You don't have to worry about retirement dates or new versions of exams because you don't need to take another exam. You are already certified. So another nice thing to think about. The Core 1 exam itself and the questions that we will cover today cover topics such as mobile devices, networking, hardware, virtualization and cloud computing, and hardware and network troubleshooting. All of those will be covered. We've got questions that cover topics from each of those very broad categories, so just stay tuned. We will get to all of those and kind of step through and give you a bit of a sampling across all of them during this live stream. Of course, these live streams are available for you to watch online on the YouTube immediately afterwards. I hit the stop button. It takes a couple of minutes for them to process the video, and then you can watch it almost immediately once we're done. I also create an audio-only podcast-delivered version of this live stream, and you can, of course, find that at professormesser.com/podcast, or simply look on your favorite podcast listening service. This is something that hopefully can help you as you're driving down the road. Maybe you're working out. You don't need to watch a video. It's a nice lower bandwidth option for those of you interested. Simply visit professormesser.com/podcast to subscribe to our A+, our Network Plus, or our Security Plus live streams. Also let you know that eventually you will probably need to go back and watch some of these replays. And about a day after this live stream, you'll notice that there are timestamps that will appear in the YouTube video description. Those timestamps come to you thanks to our marketing manager, Lori, who is listening to this replay right now. Hey, Lori. She's going through and marking all of these timestamps for you so that you can find all of this information and be able to quickly jump to the information that you might need for any of our live streams. And I will also let you know that we have a Discord chat. So once we're done here on the live stream, maybe you'll meet us over there. If you have Discord, it's a great one to add at our server at professormesser.com/Discord. And if you don't have Discord, this may be a perfect way to jump into it. It's all free. Go to professormesser.com/Discord. You can either join on the web or with a client that runs on your mobile device, on your local operating system. Just find the one that works for you, and you can work through it. And then lastly, I'll let you know that eventually you will need to take this exam. And you could, of course, go to the CompTIA website and pay full price to take the exam. But why would you do that when I have discounted vouchers available on my website? You can pay less to take this exam than going directly to CompTIA. You can find that at professormesser.com/vouchers. Not only do you get your certification voucher if you are in the US and Canada at a less expensive price, but I give you even more. So if you purchase from my site, I'll give you a free copy of my Exam Hacks ebook. I have compiled a list of tips and tricks that I have accumulated through the years while taking CompTIA exams and other manufacturers' exams. There might be some tips in there that can give you some extra points even during the exam itself. Find out more about that. Visit us at professormesser.com/vouchers. Let's now go back to that question I asked earlier, which was, after drive failure, a system administrator has replaced the bad drive in the array and restored from a backup. Which of the following would describe this drive array? Would it be RAID 0+1, RAID 0, RAID 1, RAID 5, or RAID 1+0? So let's see what you think of this one. A lot of you have already locked in your answers on those. So let's see how you did with this question. And we're really almost as torn with the answer to this one as we were last month, but we're a little bit better. We did slightly better than we did last month. We have 36% of you said RAID 0, 36% of you said RAID 1. We have a literal tie, for first place. 15% said RAID 5. We have 7% that said RAID 1 plus 0 and 4% that said RAID 0 plus 1. Well, this is our problem, is trying to figure this out. And the real key in this question was there was a drive failure. We know there's a RAID array because that's the only options we had for this particular question. They replaced the bad drive, which of course you have to do. But here's the critical part, is that they restored from a backup. Well, as I often tell you, RAID is not backup, and that is true. But there is one RAID type that requires you to restore from backup if it fails. And that RAID type is RAID 0. RAID 0 is zero redundancy. You can think of it that way. If you lose a drive in a RAID 0 array, you lose all of the data on that array. There's no way to access just what's left. You have nothing that you can access. So if you lose a drive, you have to, of course, replace it. And then you have to then replace the data. And that's one of the reasons we tell you, one of the many reasons we tell you that RAID is not backup. Even with the other methods of RAID, those are not methods of backing up. Those are simply ways to create some redundancy if you happen to lose a piece of hardware, in this particular case, a hard drive. RAID 0 is splitting these blocks between one or more physical drives. So this is where it becomes difficult, because if you were to lose either of these drives, you've lost, in this particular example, half of the data. And simply replacing the drive doesn't get the data back. That zero redundancy means if you have a drive failure, you're breaking the entire array. There's no redundancy there. So that is the real key to RAID and understanding how to recover from RAID. And as I mentioned last month as well, you not only need to know how this RAID works, you need to know how to fix it if it goes bad. This is pretty much the job you will be doing for your entire career in IT, is not only understanding how it works, but understanding what to do when it doesn't work. And I think that's probably even more important. And there will certainly be more questions and more people looking at you when it's not working. So you have to be really ready to go when those particular examples occur. So in this case, the 36% of you that said RAID 0 got that one absolutely correct. Would not be RAID 1. RAID 1 is mirroring, which means if you were to have two drives and one of them failed, both drives have duplicate information on them. So you don't have to restore from a backup. You just plug in the new drive and it will recover to that new drive. You'll effectively just copy everything back to it and get remirrored. Same thing applies for RAID 5. Same thing applies for RAID 1 plus 0. And same thing applies for RAID 0 plus 1. They have different methods of providing that redundancy, but they are all still redundant. So that is the important part, is there was only one of these options here that did not provide any redundancy. That option was RAID 0. So if you answered RAID 0, you got that one absolutely correct. Well done. So hopefully that's given you some perspective on how all of this works. Now you understand a little bit better about the process. Hopefully now you can get in and answer the questions that we have there. So let's see how we do with some brand new questions. And I indeed have some brand new questions for you. These next question that I have for you, and the first new question that we always do on these live streams, is a performance-based question. This is probably one of the most popular questions I get, which is, I'm ready for my A+ exam. I've heard on the A+ exam that the first handful of questions you get are not multiple choice questions. And you are correct. The first handful of questions you get on the exam is one that is not multiple choice. It's anything but multiple choice. It could be fill in the blank. It could be a matching question. It could be a drag and drop question. They might pop you into a command prompt and ask you to solve a problem. All of those things can be pretty useful. So one of the things that I like to do in our live streams is to give you a performance-based question as your first new question of the month. And I have for you a brand new question of the month. This one is more of a how do I troubleshoot question, just as I mentioned to you. So let's give you this how to troubleshoot question that I have here. This is a question that asks, select the right tool for the issue. Some tools will not be used. And I say that because There are 4 issues listed here, and there are 7 different tools. So what I'm looking for you to tell me is the answer, and you can use the letters and the numbers here. We have 1A, 2B, 3C, 4D. If you think they're already in the right order, you can simply submit that, and you've got the right answer. If you want to submit your answer, go to professormesser.com/QA to be able to submit that answer. Hopefully, that gives you at least something to go with. Now, let's step through each one of these issues and see if we can determine what the best tool would be to fix this particular problem, or at least the initial thing you should grab, the initial tool to fix this issue. The first is, number 1, a desk move has severed the connector on an Ethernet cable. What would we use to solve that? And there are a number of different options to choose from. There's a 110 block, a loopback plug, a crimper, a toner probe, a Wi-Fi analyzer, a punch-down tool, or a network tap. So now we need to figure out which one of those it's going to be. The second problem that we need to solve is that wireless connectivity is not available in the conference room. What tool will we use of those 7 to solve this problem? The third is an audit requires verification of encrypted LAN packet data. We got to use something to help out with this audit, right? These are questions that are the auditors, they've been in that conference room for weeks. Now they're showing up and asking us to do things for them. What do we do? How do we solve that problem? And lastly, a router interface is showing a large number of CRC errors. So there are 4 real world problems that I have absolutely run into in my career. Hopefully these will be things that you will run into as well, and you'll know immediately how to solve them because you got to go through these particular scenarios and see which ones they are. So they are, again, a desk move has severed the connector on an Ethernet cable. Wireless connectivity is not available in the conference room. An audit requires verification of encrypted LAN packet data, and a router interface is showing a large number of CRC errors. Now we need to put into this list a 110 block, a loopback plug, a crimper, a toner probe, a Wi-Fi analyzer, a punch-down tool, or a network tap. Now you'll notice because we have 4 of these issues, we will plug in 4 of these different tools. That means 3 tools will be left over at the end. And we'll look to see what those tools are, and we'll try to figure out why they didn't fit into any of these different scenarios. Hopefully you're familiar with this. You can plug in your answer. Simply visit professormesser.com/QA. And as I mentioned, all you have to do is give me the name or the letter and the number and the letter. So if you think they are already in the right order, it'd be 1A, 2B, 3C, and 4D. That's it. That's not, by the way, the answer. Fortunately, I don't see anybody submitting that as the answer. A lot of questions already covered, a lot of answers are already being submitted. You guys are doing really well with this, by the way. Just a cursory glance at what's coming in gives me hope for the future. I guess, well, maybe not that much. You know what I'm saying? They're looking, you're doing very good. You're doing a very good job of this. Also, remember the answer you submitted because I don't have a way to show that to you after we're done here. So we'll have to see what you can remember of the answer that you submitted as we step through it. This, by the way, the strategy that I put into this question where there's a bit of a mismatch as to the number of questions and the number of possible answers. And CompTIA commonly does this on their exams, by the way, because they don't want to give you a 1-to-1. Because if you know 3 of them, the 4th one then automatically is correct. Instead, they give you a different number of answers than questions. And they have some that are left over at the end. Because you could effectively answer 3 questions right here, but you still get the 4th one wrong. Because there are more than 4 possible answers to choose from. I think that's pretty crafty on their part. It's not really a trick, is it? It's more of a strategy that they provide to see if you really know your stuff. Although people tell me all the time, it's a trick. They've got me in here and now they've given me this trick question, but it's not really a trick. So now you're ready for it. It's not a trick at all. You know exactly what the possible answers are. So hopefully that will give you an idea of what the possible answers could be. So let's go through each one of these and see if you know which tool would be the right one for this particular job. We're going to start with the very first one on our list, and that is a desk move has severed the connector on an Ethernet cable. And how do I know this could happen? Well, because this happens all the time. We have a problem with Macs, not Apple Macintoshes, moves, adds, and changes. Macs. It is a natural byproduct of the business, of the things that we do. Every day, people, I'm being moved to a different desk. This particular group is moving to a different building. Oh, there's some new people that we're adding to the organization. They're going to sit in these desks that we've had sitting there. Moves, adds, and changes is the problem. And sometimes when you're moving things around, the end of a cable might get cut off at the bottom of you're putting down a desk and it chops it off, or somebody gets the cable crimped in a doorway and it no longer works. So what do we do if we sever the connector on an Ethernet cable? Well, we grab our crimper. And now, of course, you're going to need to grab an extra connector. You'll probably need to get your scissors, but those weren't in the list. So I tried to minimize all of the multiple options that you would choose from. You're going to certainly just grab your bag and go with you. But certainly the crimper was the one in this list that applies best for solving this particular problem. And if you haven't been doing any crimping, that's obviously not a requirement for your A+ exam, but it is something that is a very useful skill to have, not just in your work environment. I crimp my wires, my cables here in the studio all the time, so it does come in handy if somebody says to you, we need to make a cable that is exactly this length. No problem. I can make a cable exactly that length, and we'll use our crimpers. We'll put new connectors on it, and now we've got a new Ethernet cable. The second on our list is wireless connectivity is not available in the conference room. Wireless connectivity. So everybody pours into the conference room. We pop open our laptops, and we don't get very good coverage at all. How could we address this particular issue? Well, the first thing would be to see just how much wireless signal are we getting in the conference room. And a great tool to be able to provide you with that is some type of Wi-Fi analyzer. And if you get the right kind of Wi-Fi analyzer, you can even create a heat map. You can walk around with your laptop or your mobile device, and it will create a heat map on a map of your screen. Some of the nicer ones even use the LiDAR that's built into your phones to be able to map the room as you are walking around the room and give you a heat map and a physical diagram just by walking around. You don't have to import any type of floor plan. It figures out the floor plan for you, all built into your Wi-Fi analyzer. Next on our list is number 3, who says an audit requires verification of encrypted LAN packet data. This is probably not too unusual. This is what auditors would like to be able to see, especially if your organization is sending sensitive data over the network. And what data isn't sensitive on the network these days? The way to do this would be to certainly find some way to view the LAN traffic data. Find some way to look at the data itself. So we'd probably grab some type of network analyzer. But there wasn't a network analyzer on our list. Well, not only do we need to grab the network analyzer, we need to have some way to redirect that data into our analyzer, because as you're probably aware, Switch is not going to send you all the traffic that's on your network. One way that you could redirect from one network link into your analyzer would be to use something like a network tap. A network tap is perfect for this purpose because it allows us to physically break a link, put that link back together so everything is still running, but then also provide some type of extra link to our analyzer so that we can see that data. So a network tap can be a critical component. This can be especially important if your switch does not support any type of internal software-based tap or redirection. And it's also useful if you have other types of media that might be difficult to tap. For example, maybe it's a fiber connection. We will need a fiber tap. If it's a coax connection, we will need a coax tap, that type of thing. So that's another example of finding the right tool for the right job and making that happen. Next on our list is a router interface is showing a large number of CRC errors. So this is also a scenario that I have run into before, and this is something you may find from time to time, is you notice that a device has suddenly got a particular interface, and that interface has an increasing number of errors associated with it. In this case, cyclic redundancy check is the one that we have here, which indicates perhaps some type of issue with the signal or an issue receiving the signal. Sometimes it's the signal is fine, you're just having a problem hearing it. Sometimes the signal itself is the problem, but how do you know? How can you decide, is it me that's the problem or is it the signal that's the problem? Well, we need to somehow evaluate how well that interface can communicate, and a perfect way to evaluate that is by using a loopback adapter, being able to take the data going out of the device and loop it back into the device. This commonly is done in conjunction with a testing process so that you will send out a certain type of data. The loopback plug will certainly send that data back in, and then we will be able to interpret, did we receive what we transmitted? And if we did receive what we transmitted, we feel pretty comfortable that that interface is okay. If we did not receive what we transmitted, then we probably have a problem with that interface. There's probably an issue with that hardware. I guess technically there could be a problem with the loopback plug as well. It's just one of those things you have to think about and being able to work through it. That loopback plug was our issue. You don't run into that very often. Loopback plugs are usually very small. Sometimes they're all sort of a self-contained tiny little adapter you plug in. There's not much to go wrong with it. They're relatively passive. So it's not often the loopback plug. It's usually the interface. And that gives you an idea. If your interface came back clean, then you can point to that link, the cable, the crimping. There's something else wrong. And we can kind of break down where the problems are from there. We did not choose a 110 block. For those of you familiar with a punch down tool and putting all of those wires into that big block that is on the wall, a 110 block, very common to use for something like that. We also have a toner probe that we did not choose for any of these. A toner probe is great if you have a large number of wires coming into a particular area and you have a desk maybe that's out on the floor and you're trying to figure out where the cable that's under the desk, where is it in this big group of cables that I have in front of me? And what we can do is put a tone on the cable back at the desk and use a probe to find the cable that has that particular tone. It is something everyone should have in their bag. If they're doing anything with networking, you should always have a toner probe that you could pull out and start finding where's the end of this cable. It's going to help you quite a bit. And then lastly, the other thing that we did not choose is a punch down tool. As I mentioned with the 110 block, that's what we would use to fasten the single wires to the block itself, is the tool that punches it down into the block. We have called that a punch down tool. We didn't spend a lot of time on the marketing. Does it punch things down? Yes. Well, then that's the punch down. That's the process we went through. Not very difficult there. So the answers again, a desk move has severed the connector on an Ethernet cable. We're going to use a crimper. We've got wireless connectivity not available in the conference room. Then we will need a Wi-Fi analyzer of some kind. An audit requires verification of encrypted LAN packet data. Let's grab our packet analyzer, and we're going to need a network tap to be able to break into that connection. And then lastly, a router interface is showing a large number of CRC errors. Let's check the hardware of that device by connecting a loopback plug and running a series of standard tests. Well, that is one. I think those four are challenging issues. Hopefully now if you run into any of these and you're wondering, what do we do first? What do we do next? Now we know, because we are working through the problems associated with a real world issue. And now maybe you can address those maybe better than you had prior to coming to this. So this is something you could certainly be asked on the exam. All of these topics, crimpers, Wi-Fi handlers, network taps, loopback plugs, 110 block, toner probe, punch down tool, they're all in your exam objectives. So make sure you're familiar with the objectives. I also summarize each one of these in my video that's in section 2.8. The video name is Network Tools. You can always go and learn more about any of these topics. That is your performance-based question of the month. Hopefully you did well on that one. Let's now shift gears back to our traditional questions that have multiple answers, our multiple choice questions. This multiple choice question is one that asks, A user has confirmed a matching PIN on their mobile phone. Which of the following would most likely be associated with this task? Would it be to update current GPS coordinates, receive updated list of emails, send a text message, connect to a car audio system, or receive an update from the corporate MDM? The question again asks, a user has confirmed a matching PIN, PIN, on their mobile phone. Which of the following would be most likely associated with this task? Would it be update the current GPS coordinates, receive updated list of emails, send a text message, connect to a car audio system, or receive an update from the corporate MDM? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. Please no answers in your chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We will certainly go through the process of breaking out what each one of these might be, but we're going to answer it now as if we are in the exam itself. We're going to go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. This is one where if you are ever in a situation where you are stepping through the process of working on a system or fixing a problem or simply evaluating where a problem or an issue might be, there are things that happen all the time. There are things that pop up on the screen. And very often I will be working with people and they'll just click through it, just click through it, just click through it, just click through it. And they don't even read what's there. But sometimes the information that's on the screen can be incredibly useful. So make sure you are familiar with what those options are. This is this question. Let's see how you did. A number of you have answered this one. So let's break it down and see if we know really what this answer is. The question again asks, a user has confirmed a matching PIN on their mobile phone. Which of the following would be most likely associated with this task? Would it be update current GPS coordinates, receive updated list of emails, send a text message, connect to a car audio system, or receive an update from the corporate MDM? 70% of us, a pretty strong percentage, say the answer is connect to a car audio system. Although 20% of us say receive an update from the corporate MDM. So those are two very strong answers. Obviously, one has a vast majority, although 20%, almost 21%, still a pretty good number of you answering that one. We have 6% that say send a text message, 1% that say receive updated list of emails, and 0% say update current GPS coordinates. Wouldn't it be great if that was it? 0% won, like that was it? No, this is a question that we sort of have to extend out our functionality as IT professionals. You know, one of the things you will often see people talk about in IT is you are sometimes in the position of supporting anything that has power, anything that plugs into the wall. This is probably one of those scenarios because now our mobile devices can do so much, and we are often in a position of extending our knowledge into these different areas because they're on a business trip, they hop into their rental car, they pull out their phone, and they want to connect their phone to the car so they can make calls while they are driving down the road and do it safely with a hands-off Bluetooth integration. And that's part of the Bluetooth pairing process. You would, on your Android or iOS device, you would turn on the Bluetooth functionality, select the car, which should be in a mode that allows you to see the car that's there. And then it may ask you, once you select that device, to enter or confirm a personal identification number. Now, it's probably not even asking you to put it in. It probably is just showing it on the screen. Sometimes they do ask you to punch it into the device, depending on the device and what's there. But it's probably showing you a number that's on the Bluetooth car. It's probably a number right on the display. And then that number should match everything that is on your phone. So this is really the key as you are kind of stepping through and trying to understand the process. You will get that personal identification number either to interactively plug in or to verify on your mobile device. This prevents you from connecting to a device that is not under your control. So it's a verification process to make sure that you are connecting the phone to the correct device. It's all about security. And that's something that you should stop and look at and understand what it's telling you and make sure that the numbers are correct. Don't just click, oh, yes, that's it. Click OK without any type of verification. They're giving you a chance to verify what would be there and what you'd be working through. So that is the answer that we were hoping for. 70% of you got that one absolutely correct. That is the right answer. Now, 20% of you said receive an update from the corporate mobile device manager. That's an MDM. A mobile device manager. Mobile device managers are usually work behind the scenes. There's something that you often don't even know is working. And from the mobile device manager, your IT team can send applications to your device. They can enable and disable certain features on your mobile device. They have a relatively large control of your machine because of your phone, because they are able to manage it from the mobile device manager, the MDM. But whenever you get an update from the MDM, you won't even know it. There won't be any messages on your screen. It won't tell you we are currently receiving an update from the corporate MDM. Here's a PIN number. I don't even know how that would work. But that is one where it's probably, or in this case, the PIN, the personal identification number you see on your screen, has nothing to do with an MDM. You won't see pins associated with those. The management of those devices happens relatively seamlessly, and well, it should. You don't want something getting in the middle of you trying to use your mobile device. It all works behind the scenes. You don't have to deal with a pin when you're working through those. Sending a text message. I've never had to confirm a matching pin when sending a text message, thankfully. Could you imagine every time we wanted to send a text message, there'd be, well, before you can send this text message, please verify this personal identification number on your screen. We never send text messages. So in this case, not the right answer we're looking for. Receiving an updated list of emails, either for better or worse, I get my updated list of emails without any type of personal identification number. So that's not something I would commonly use. And personal identification numbers are not generally used when receiving emails, although I guess technically we could maybe interpret that as receiving some type of additional authentication. I guess it could be that way. It's so unusual to run into something like that when receiving emails that it would not be most likely associated with this task. Most likely associated with this is clearly connecting to a car audio system. And nobody chose updating the current GPS coordinates. That just happens on its own anyway, and it doesn't need a PIN to be able to make that happen. In this case, the answer was indeed connect to a car audio system, and 70% of you got that one absolutely correct. Let's do another one. On to our next question, and it asks, a firewall is configured to allow UDP 67. Which of the following would be the most likely reason for this firewall rule? Would it be share Windows files, transfer email messages, control a remote computer, look up a domain name, or configure IP addresses? Now we really do have to figure this out. A firewall is configured to allow UDP 67. Which of the following would be the most likely reason for this firewall rule? Is it to share Windows files, transfer email messages, control a remote computer, look up a domain name, or configure IP addresses? Do you think you know the answer? Follow our link. Go to professormesser.com/QA. Please, no answers in the chat room. Please, no hints in the chat room. You want to instead plug in your answer right there. A lot of people getting their answers in quick on these. I never know if that's because we're getting it absolutely right or if we're getting it absolutely wrong. I haven't been able to crack the code on that one yet. So I'll just watch the numbers increase and we'll figure that out as we go along. It's one or the other, or maybe it's somewhere in the middle. We're going to find out. I have a way I can see the answers on my side if I wanted to. I could go in and look, but that's no fun. So I kind of like to see it when you see it. So that's just something we're going to do together as we step through this. This question is one that's sort of in the reverse, and you'll notice something interesting about this question. I'll bring this up during the answer. I don't want to give too much away, but this is very much in the style of questions that you could potentially get on an actual exam, and I'll explain why in just a moment. Let's see how you did with this one. The question asks, a firewall is configured to allow UDP 67. Which of the following would be the most likely reason for this firewall rule? Is it to share Windows files, transfer email messages, control a remote computer, look up a domain name, or configure IP addresses? And you chose, 52% of you chose configure IP addresses, but almost every other answer still in double digits. 13% said look up a domain name, 12% say control a remote computer, 11% say share Windows files, and 9% say transfer email messages. So the real problem here, and the real key, and as I mentioned, the thing that makes this a very familiar A+ question, is that it's not a trivia question. It's not a flashcard question, as we've called them in the past. And some of you spend a lot of time with your flashcards going, port 80, HTTP, 443, HTTPS. And you kind of go through all of your port numbers with your protocols, and you've memorized all the port numbers, and you've memorized all the protocols, and you know what they are. But what you may not know is what those protocols do. And CompTIA really doesn't care so much that you know the name and the number. I mean, that's useful, I guess, to some relatively important person who likes to have flashcards, but it doesn't help you understand the bigger picture. So this is one where the bigger picture is what we were focusing on, because these protocols and these ports that we have to memorize, there is a purpose to this. There's a bigger reason that we are memorizing them, because we use them to perform tasks on our network. And this is a good question to ask you. What's the task? Why are we even doing this? Why is there even a UDP 67? Well, if we go with the majority of you, 52% of you say the answer configure IP addresses. And if you're somebody who is looking at a network, you're capturing traffic, you're looking at the traffic that's being sent over your network, and you see UDP 67, then it's probably because you have captured some DHCP traffic. This is the dynamic host configuration protocol. This particular protocol communicates over two different port numbers, both UDP 67 and UDP 68. So if you see either one of those, you're probably looking at the middle of a DHCP conversation, being able to work through it. DHCP is, well, we don't even think about it these days. DHCP is just automatic. We just plug in our computer and it works. We just connect to the wireless network and it works. We don't even think about the automated IP address configuration process that's occurring in the background. But of course, you as a system administrator, a network administrator, a security professional, anyone in IT, you will of course need to know how to understand the process of the dynamic host configuration protocol. In fact, that is part of the exam video. In this case, this video is only talking about the port numbers. In a different video, we talk more about DHCP. We talk about the whole process. We talk about DHCP reservations. We talk about DHCP pools. We talk about DHCP options. There's a lot more to DHCP than you may not even realize. There's so much to it. Once you dig into any of these topics, that's sort of the way that it works. So in this case, what we were hoping to know is DHCP. But of course, the question didn't say DHCP. It didn't say IMAP. It did not say HTTPS. It instead gave you these real world scenarios. It gave you share Windows files. That would be SMB. Transfer email messages. That might be SMTP. It might be POP3. It might be IMAP. Control a remote computer. Might be RDP. We're looking up a domain name. That would be DNS. And all of those have their own port numbers associated with them. So you do have to make that jump in these questions of looking up a domain name. What protocol is used for that? What port number would I expect to see? And if you do have flashcards that you are doing with this, add that extra information to your flashcard. Add not just the port number and the protocol, make sure you add what this does for you. What does this protocol actually accomplish? Because you may get a question on your exam that asks that. And in this case, the thing that this protocol accomplishes is to automatically configure IP addresses, subnet masks, default gateways, DNS configurations, and so much more. DHCP has a large number of options available inside of it. But for this particular question, that was the answer we were looking for. Configure IP addresses. And 52% of you got that one absolutely correct. Well done. One of the things you've probably noticed already, there's a ton of information on this exam. There are questions about networking and security and hardware and software and operating systems and Linux and Mac OS. So much you have to remember. Now, of course, our video series goes through every single one of the official CompTIA exam objectives. We cover every topic they expect you to know. But you may not be able to get through every video. There's 137 videos in this series, 19 hours of content. And as much as I would like you to watch every minute of every video, I realize that not everybody can do that. Well, fortunately, we have a way to perhaps work towards making this a little bit easier for you, because I've taken everything from our video series, our training, everything that you see and is available on your system, and I've made it into a set of course notes. The course notes themselves are available in the PDF format that you see on your screen here. They're also available in a physical form, so you can get it in both a digital and physical form. It's identical, of course. They're exactly the same, but this one is one that you can take with you, stick in your bag and write on, and sometimes having a physical book is more tactile. Maybe some people like that a little better. But of course, we have this digital version as well that you can bring up on any of your mobile devices, because it is a PDF. It's something you can use on any of your systems. And it's also one that you get for free if you get the physical version. So while you're waiting on this to be sent to you, because I have to print it and ship it out to you, while you're waiting for that, you'll be able to immediately download the PDF version and start learning information from that one immediately. If you think this is something that might help you, you can certainly find out more about it on our website. Go to professormesser.com/1101notes, or simply follow the main menus on our site to find out about how you can get our notes, our practice exams, our downloadable videos, and so much more. They're all on the website at professormesser.com/1101notes. Let's do some more questions. I've got more here for you. The next question on our list is, everybody says, we need a lot more printer questions. And I said, well, gosh, let's do that. Let's have more. Nobody's ever said this to me. But I put some in here anyway, because there are a lot of printer questions that are on the exam. This question asks, a technician is using a cleaning card during printer maintenance. Which printer type would be associated with this task? Is it laser, thermal, 3D, inkjet, impact? Well, you've got a lot to choose from there. A technician is using a cleaning card during printer maintenance. Which printer type would be associated with this task? Is it laser, thermal, 3D, inkjet, or impact? And if you want to lock in your answer, it'd be good if I put that up on the screen. You can go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. See what you do with this question. So questions in the chat room real quick. Well, they asked questions from the 902 videos. I found information in the 902 that's not in the 1101. The 902 videos, they're about 7 years old at this point. You will not get questions from older versions of exams, thankfully. And that's a pretty important thing to think about, is where do you start and stop with what you need to know during these exams? And we'll talk about this in a moment, but you need to go to the exam objectives. If you download the 1101 exam objectives and the 1102 exam objectives, that tells you everything you need to know. You don't need to go beyond that list. You should certainly know everything that is on that list. It is a comprehensive list. There's no reason you have to go outside the scope of those. So if you're wondering, is this topic on the exam? Is this topic on the exam? How about this topic? Is it on the exam? You can always go to the official exam objectives and it will tell you if that topic is on the exam or not. And then you'll know whether you need to study for that for your particular exam studies. So that is the important part, is go to the exam objectives. Always, always, always go to the exam objectives and you'll be just fine. Let's see how you did with this one. The question asks, a technician is using a cleaning card during printer maintenance. Which printer type would be associated with this task? Would it be laser, thermal, 3D, inkjet, or impact? It's got to be one of these. What did you choose? Let's find out. Oh, we're all over the place. Nobody came close to a majority. Everything is double digits. Wow, we've got a lot going on here. 24% say thermal, 22% say inkjet, 18% say 3D, 17% say laser, 16% say impact. We just don't know what the answer to this one is. But let's go with the plurality of you that have chosen thermal as the answer. You beat it by about 2%, 24.58% of you. I'm not sure which one of you are the 0.58, but the 24.58% of you said thermal is what you would choose for a cleaning card that you would use during printer maintenance. And for those of you that have worked with thermal printers, I'm guessing about 24.58% of you have worked with thermal printers before. You know that you could go in the printer and clean it manually with some type of isopropyl alcohol, IPA type scenario. Sometimes a cleaning pin will work. Sometimes you can use swabs that are not going to leave any type of fibers left behind. Those are pretty important. But that can get kind of messy, and then you have to open it up. You have to know what you're doing, which is sometimes the harder part. But there's also cards that you can get for these devices that allow you to simply put the card through the machine, and it will clean it as it goes through the machine. Those are very common to see for thermal printers, primarily because this cleaning area, the print head itself, that's the print head. The print head doesn't move. It's all one piece. It's relatively small. It's something that you can clean pretty easily with a card like that. And it also, of course, cleans any part of the pathway that the paper may run. So this is one where you might run into using these cleaner cards for a thermal printer. They are legit. They do work. For certain thermal printers, they might be the easiest way to do it. And if you don't want the end user opening up the thermal printer and getting in there and messing around with the internals, you can just give them this card to run through, and that may be a little bit easier to be able to work through that. Anybody can use a cleaning card to do that. And if you answered thermal, there were 24.58% of you that did. You got that one absolutely correct. Inkjet printers do not use a cleaning card for printer maintenance. They do commonly have their own process internal to the printer that cleans every day. That's because the ink that we tend to use in inkjet printers clogs very, very, very easily. If you were to leave it more than a day, you might have a problem with that printer working afterwards because it just clogs right up. You're not able to get anything out of the printer because of the clogs that are there. And if you open up an inkjet printer and look, you may even notice that there is a cleaning swab or a cleaning part of the printer that comes through every day at a certain time and simply cleans off the inkjet cartridges. Something that's built into the printer itself. And there's probably a cleaning button or a cleaning process you can put it through manually to do that as well. But we don't tend to use cards for that. It's a little more complicated because your printer path doesn't physically touch the inkjet cartridge. The inkjet cartridge sits just above the page. So if you put a card through inkjet, it would never touch the inkjet cartridge. It wouldn't clean anything. So that would not be the right answer. Similar problem with the laser printer. Laser printer has toner that is being dispensed out of your toner cartridge, but there's nothing that a cleaning card would clean off. The toner cartridge is not one that physically touches the paper either. In fact, it's putting it on a drum, which then touches the paper. So not exactly the best way to clean that one. We don't tend to use cleaning cards for laser printers because of that. 3D printers don't use cleaning cards. 3D printers there's all kinds of different flavors of 3D printer, and none of them use a card to be able to clean that. And then lastly, an impact printer, like a dot matrix printer. That's one that potentially a cleaning card could do some things with because everything is very close to each other, but even the print head on an impact printer doesn't actually touch the page either. So that's not going to help you much either. The only one of these where you're physically touching the page with that print head is indeed the thermal printer, and that's why a cleaning card would work so well for that, and 24.58% of you got that one absolutely correct. If you are watching this video for continuing education unit credit, I would love to send you an email that verifies that you were here to watch this. And if you're watching this on a replay, you have to follow this process to earn your CEU. And in fact, this is just the way everyone should do it because I'll be glad to send you this message. The way that you would earn that email, it's not sent to you automatically, is you go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website and click the Contact Us link. Click Contact Us, and it will bring up a page. On that Contact Us link, be sure to put your name, your email address. Make sure it's correct because I'm emailing this to you. In the title, please put that this is the Core 1 study. Let's put Core 1 July, and that's all I need to know. Core 1 July, something like that, or Core 1 July 2024, or 2201101. As long as I know what this video is and where this came from, it helps me out quite a bit. It's not critical, but pretty important that I can read those things. And then in the body of the message, on a line by itself, put the super secret code words of the month: thermal laser impact. Thermal laser impact are the super secret code words of the month. You have to put all three of those in there for me to know that you must have been watching this to earn this credit. Send that to me in about a week. I can turn these around. You'll receive an email from me that includes a digital signature, so you know that nobody messed with this, nobody changed anything, that certifies that you were indeed here for 1 hour of a webinar category CEU. I realize not everybody is collecting CEUs to renew their certification, but if you are, this might be something that can help you. Again, go to the top or the bottom of the website, click Contact Us, put in your name, your email address. In the subject line, put July 2024 Core 1 or something like that. And then the body of the message, put the super secret code words of the month. What did I say? Thermal laser impact. That's what I said. I think that's what I said. If not, put one of those. Put either one of those. I think we'll be fine. I think I got it right. Thermal laser impact will be that. That's my new band name, Thermal Laser Impact. That's the one we're playing tomorrow night in the quad. It's going to be great. Come on down. We'd love to have you there. This question is one that is a printer question, and you could get a number of printer questions on your exam. We'd love for you to be involved with going through the process of those. We have a series of videos on our YouTube channel that deal specifically with laser printers and laser printer maintenance, impact printers, impact printer maintenance, thermal printers, thermal printer maintenance. So you can go through all of those and you'll know exactly where you stand as far as printers are concerned. You're probably going to get a printer question on your exam. It's kind of what I'm saying. Let's do more. I know we're near the top of the hour, but let's do another question because that's why we're here, right? The question asks, a cloud app is accessible simultaneously from many different data centers. Which of the following characteristics would be most important for this app? Would it be non-metered, file synchronization, internal cloud, desktop as a service, or rapid elasticity? Got a lot going on there. A cloud app is accessible simultaneously from many different data centers. Which of the following characteristics would be most important for this app? Is it non-metered, file synchronization, internal cloud, desktop as a service, or rapid elasticity? Which I just like to say. I don't know if it's the right answer or not, but I just like to say it. A lot of good words in this one. It's a lot of good, very expensive words in this question. See if you know the answer. We got the link on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. This is a pretty important one. One of the things you'll notice with this particular question, or maybe you don't, one of the things I notice with this particular question is it sort of describes my website, because you can access my website simultaneously from many different data centers. My website, of course, is a cloud-based service. So that's the one. I want to be able to kind of break this down, sort of a real-world scenario. Let's see how you do with this one. This would be a good one to kind of understand what the differences are of apps and the way they work. Let's see how you do with this one. See if this becomes a little more familiar. Cloud-based services are on the Core 1. They're in Network Plus. They're a lot less in Network Plus these days. They've changed the Network Plus. The Network Plus is currently in a conversion from one version to another, and the cloud-based training that we're getting in that one has been refined a bit. Same thing for security in many ways. It's just not repeating everything from the A Plus anymore. They're a little more focused on the security side of cloud-based services. So hopefully this will be familiar to you if you run into it. Let's see how you did with this one. This question asks, a cloud app is accessible simultaneously from many different data centers. Which of the following characteristics would be most important for this app? Is it non-metered, file synchronization, internal cloud, desktop as a service, or rapid elasticity. Let's see what you chose. We'll stop the poll. And 61% of you, very strong number, say the answer is file synchronization. 24% of you, another very strong number, say rapid elasticity. And then we have 4% all coming in the third place for non-metered, internal cloud, and desktop as a service. All of those are at 4%. So this is the real problem here, and the real challenge you run into with applications. And this is one of the challenges I run into on my website, is there are multiple Professor Messer web servers. I have multiple cloud servers that are supporting my website. So when you connect to my site, you could be connected to one or more different web servers. Well, if I'm having you connect to one or more different web servers, how do we keep all of that data the same? How do we make sure that person connecting to one web server is looking at exactly the same web page as somebody who's connecting to a completely different web server? There has to be some way to keep these things in an order so that everyone receives exactly the same information. They see exactly the same thing. Now, a lot of people, in this case, about 24% of you chose rapid elasticity. Rapid elasticity is a characteristic of cloud computing that describes the process of building out the cloud very quickly and even shrinking down the cloud very quickly when the number of people needing that access goes away. This is one of the benefits, of course, is that we don't have to buy more hardware. We don't have to now be stuck with buying more hardware, especially for times of the year that are very busy. Maybe you're a retail company. Things get very busy during the holiday season. You need a lot more resources. And then on July the 1st, everything goes back to normal. So wouldn't it be great if you could expand that out? You could be elastic, and you could put a lot more services online, a lot more web servers, a lot more traffic. You could support a lot more people hitting your site. And then when those people go away, you can shrink it back down again. No money lost other than the time you spent paying for those additional services during that very busy time of the year. So it's one of the great benefits of cloud computing, but that wasn't the question we had. The question talks about a cloud app that's accessible from multiple data centers, and we want to be able to support that. It could be high availability, redundancy. If it's available in multiple data centers, then we're already redundant. And by the way, that wasn't one of the available answers. So that's not the one we were looking for. The one that was the most applicable in this case, if people are accessing the same app from different places, they need to have the same data. And the real key to this is having file synchronization, database synchronization, just data synchronization in general becomes very important. So this is one where this is how we want to be able to make sure when you visit professormesser.com that the web page that you see is the same as the web page that everyone else sees. So that is the one we were looking for. File synchronization. 61% of you chose file synchronization, and you got that one absolutely correct. Now, there are other options here. For example, we already talked about rapid elasticity and why I felt that rapid elasticity would not be the correct answer. We've already gone through that. Non-metered means that the traffic that we are using, the files that we are storing, are not counted up against us. Usually it's a flat fee that we pay every month. For example, that would be a non-metered cloud service. An internal cloud would be one that was only on the inside of our network, or only one that people inside of our network could access. It's not a service that's available to the world. In this question, there was no mention as to whether this was an internal app, whether this was a public app, whether this was accessible from other places in the world. So internal cloud would not apply for this particular answer. And desktop as a service is a way that you could take the desktop that is on your desk and have it placed into the cloud centrally, and you would access that desktop through effectively a remote desktop type scenario. It's not exactly a remote desktop, but close enough. And it's one where you could be anywhere in the world and you can access your desktop with desktop as a service. In this case, if we have different apps that are running in different places all simultaneously, then we're going to need some type of synchronized data. That is the right answer. File synchronization, and 61% of you got that one absolutely correct. Well, I know it's top of the hour, but I want to do one more question for you. We're going to go through this one in a moment. But before we do, let me tell you this last question is one that we're bringing to you from our practice exams book. This is something that I wrote because I wasn't happy with the quality of practice exams I was seeing on the internet. A lot of practice exams out there are providing really not high quality questions. They're not in a style or a form that CompTIA tends to ask. In some cases, they're giving you wrong information completely. And one of the things I've seen most recently is there's really old and outdated content in there. I had someone send me an email say, I took this other practice exam from this other place. It was really hard. No, and they said, here's what they asked. I said, well, it wasn't hard. It was wrong. The problem was they weren't asking you questions that applied to the current version of the exam. It was not updated for the exam that you were planning to take. You need study materials that have been specifically written for the exam you're walking in the door to take. And this is one that's guaranteed to be that way. We stick to the exam objectives. So this is one that has 3 separate exam objectives or 3 separate practice exams, 90 questions in each exam. 5 of those questions are performance-based questions. So in this entire book, you get 15 performance-based questions, and you get detailed answers for each one. Let me show you what I mean. We'll go through a question right now. Again, no answers in the chat room. Please, no hints in the chat room. We want to take this question. This is from my book. It's on what page is this? Page 28, question A83. And the question asks, a system administrator needs a secure method of storing encryption keys. Which of the following would be the best choice for this requirement? Would that be a BIOS, a secure boot, NTFS, or HSM? Now, because this is a PDF, I can do annotation. If I'm on a tablet, I can write on the screen. I'm in a PDF reader that's here, so I could choose different things. I can highlight different information or change what I have on the screen so that I can annotate exactly the way I would like it to be. And if I think I know the answer, I can choose the answer even on the screen, maybe mark it for later and be able to look at it. Now, the answer to this one, if you just want to know if it's A, B, C, or D, I have questions here or links here for the quick answer. A, B, C, D is on page 31. I'm on page 28 right now, which it's not far away. I can scroll to that if I wanted to, but you'll notice where it says the details are on page 121. But I don't want you scrolling through this every time you want to find an answer. So the words quick answer and the words the details are links. So when I click the details, it takes me to page 121, right to the question and the answers. There's our question again. While a system administrator needs a secure method of storing encryption keys, which of the following would be the best choice? BIOS, secure boot, NTFS, and HSM. And you can see on the screen the answer is D, HSM. And like many types of question and answer that you will find, I give you an explanation of why that is the right answer for this question. And you can see the breakdown is there that explains that. What's different about my book than other things you might find is every wrong answer is also documented in every question in the book. So if this is what I run into when I take these questions and I take these exams, if you get a question wrong, that's the time you really need more information. That's the time you need more feedback on why you got it wrong. How am I supposed to learn about that topic if you don't tell me why I got it wrong? All you're telling me is what the right answer was. That doesn't give me that complete feedback loop, if you will, of trying to learn this content. So the answers that are in my book are not just answers that I document, they're also answers that are part of the exam objectives. So the incorrect answers are BIOS, secure boot, and NTFS, and I explain why those are the wrong answers. And so you get a breakdown of what those are. Now, if you read the question and you're wondering, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know this question. I don't know the answer. I don't know where you got this from. It's okay. I put a documentation. There's information on every single question in the book that tells you where this came from. So you'll know what exam objective this came from, and you'll have a link to the video that describes the information contained within the question that I have in the book. It's all available in my practice exams. If you want to learn more about these or buy one and have it available on your system, go to professormesser.com/core1pe. Oh, and by the way, since this is a PDF, I can now click the back button, and now I'm back to where I started. So you don't have to scroll around all the time in these PDFs. It's another thing that's kind of a difficult thing when you're working through Q&A in a PDF. I wanted to create a format that would be available for as many people as possible, and PDF is absolutely that format. But I also wanted to make it easy to use, and I think having those links inside the book add a little flavor, a little bit different than what you might have seen in a normal PDF. You'll find those in my practice exams book. We have these available for Core 1, Core 2, and they're available on my website. Go to professormesser.com/core1pe. And if you buy them in conjunction with the course notes, so you've got both course notes and you've got practice exams, there they are, you can get them for a little bit of a discount. So there might be something financially, a little benefit there for getting both of those at the same time. Hopefully that's given you something you can think about there as well. I mentioned earlier the exam objectives. Make sure you download these. They're free. They're absolutely free, and they tell you everything you need to know to pass this exam. If you've not seen these exam objectives before, they are extensive. They will show you every bullet of every topic of everything you need to know. They'll tell you how deep you need to go into some of these topics. You can see all the port numbers. I was annotating some of my port numbers on mine. There they are. A lot of information in here. And if you're ever wondering, am I ready to take this exam? This document gives you the checklist you need to understand if you are ready to walk into the exam room or if maybe you're not. Find out more on my website. There's a link over to the CompTIA website. It's absolutely free to download. Go to professormesser.com/objectives, or you can go to your favorite search engine, type in CompTIA Exam Objectives. It'll take you right there. That'll probably be the first link, and you can download the PDFs from there. Make sure you get the PDFs for both the Core 1 and the Core 2 exam. We've got a lot more to come. Don't worry. We're going to open up the question and answer for you to answer in our next hour. So stick around for that. I want to remind you that we do one of these study groups every month. Our next study group is July 11th. That's in 2 days. No, it's not the 11th. Is it? What day is this? Where am I? What's my name? So 2 days from now, it's not the 11th. It's the 18th. On the 18th, we can do this in real time. Here we go. July 18th. Nope. July 111th. There we go. See, we were able to make it happen. July 18th. Come on back on Thursday. We're doing it Thursday. That's what I should have put here. Come back Thursday. We'll do the Core 2 study group on Thursday. And then I've scheduled, at least tentatively, you'll notice my schedule for August is all over the place. August 1st and August 8th will be our A+ study group. August 14th, our Network Plus, and August 22nd, our Security Plus. Will it stay that way? Who knows? Who knows in my world? The one way you can tell when the next live event is going to be is I always keep the calendar updated. Always, always, always. So go to professormesser.com/calendar if you're ever wondering when the next event is going to be, or just click the events link at the top of our website. That's another great way to do it. If you're on our Discord, I also update the Discord channel for events is also there. I update that at the same time as the calendar, so you never go wrong. You can always check that as well to know exactly when the next live event is going to be. Well, is it over? Well, the Q&A part that I ask you questions is over, but we are certainly not done. Now I'm going to take your questions. You can submit those questions right now by going to professormesser.com/QA and submitting those questions. There's a tab at the top of the screen where you can plug those in. Don't forget about our discounted vouchers. If you happen to live in the US or Canada, go to professormesser.com/vouchers. We also have our course notes, our practice exams, our success bundle, and so much more on our website. So maybe it can help you pass this exam. Go to professormesser.com/1101success. And wherever you are, your favorite social media site, wherever you hang out, just type in professormesser.com/ the name of that site, /Discord, /Twitter, /YouTube, /Instagram, /LinkedIn, or just try one. Maybe I haven't listed. Maybe you'll find us there. I don't know. There's only one way to find out. And if you want us somewhere else, tell me. I'll create a account over there, and we'll start putting questions over there too. We'll just put them everywhere, wherever it happens to be. If this is something, if you like this video and you want to get more of these, make sure you give it a thumbs up. And it would be great if you subscribe to our channel as well. That helps us out quite a bit in this magic, crazy algorithm that YouTube has, that the web does Who knows what's going on, but I know that if you hit a thumbs up and that if you subscribe to our channel, it makes you a better person. That's all I'm saying. Is it there's a more kind of a moral clause there. I'm not sure how that works, but they do make it work that way. If you're somebody who's working through the details, it would sure help us out a lot. It would help me out a lot too. So I appreciate you even considering it. Well, we've got a lot more to do. Stick around for the after show. I'll be taking your questions in just a minute. Thank you so much for joining us in this first hour. We love doing these live events, and we could not do it without you. We look forward to seeing you in the after show, and we will talk to you next time on the A+ Study Group. Okay, let me get a sip of this. Whatever that is. And let's flip back to our camera. Hi, everybody. It's time for Q&A. It's time where we can take questions from you and see just how much we know, how much I know about the things you're asking about. Let me close out the poll that we have here on the screen. So that's not available here anymore. Let's get rid of that one. And let's close the poll. We're getting there. Okay. And you'll notice on your screen, there is a new message, and it says that you can submit questions for the second hour at any time. We will be moderating the questions. So when you submit it, it doesn't magically show up on my screen here for obvious reasons. But I will be looking through these, and we'll be in real time vetting the things that you send to me. And usually you do have pretty good questions. So now's the time to submit those. Use the link on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA and you can submit questions and I will start looking through them. The Q&A is here. We got a lot of questions you guys are already putting in there, already listing out the things that are available. And I think we will simply jump into it since we're already past the top of the hour. Now's the time to make all of this happen. So let's start with the first question that we have. And by the way, you don't even have to give your name or anything special. You can be completely anonymous when you're submitting these. And in fact, our first question comes to us from Anonymous, who says, do you have any tips for job interviews for IT? You know, it's one thing that I have put a few job-related videos on our website. I think there are even links in the YouTube video description of this video of how to, why your resume keeps getting rejected. 5 reasons your resume keeps getting rejected. That was our first video we did on that. And then I did a follow-up, 5 more reasons your resume keeps getting rejected. So we do have some resume type videos that can give you some tips and tricks of things that I have used and things that I think are working today. And in fact, there's been a bit of controversy when you do this. This is one where people don't necessarily think they should have to create a cover letter. They think that's not necessary. But as someone who used to be a hiring manager, I would read through the cover letters. It is maybe you get a hiring manager that does it, and that's fine too. But there are people that read these cover letters. And if someone is reading them, it is a chance for you to get in front of them, to get their attention. This is so hard when submitting a resume before you even get to the interview part. So I tell people that's what you need to do, is put something on that page that is gripping. Don't just put, thank you for allowing me to submit this resume for your consideration. I hope that you will find the information contained in this resume matches the requirements that you have for this position. Thank you very much, signed Professor Messer. That's worthless. Nobody cares about anything you just wrote there. And if you're simply copying and pasting and putting that in as your cover letter, you're wasting everyone's time, including your own. So in our videos, I gave you some ideas of things that you could do to not just create a cover letter, but do it very quickly and make it compelling for the person who's reading it. And that's what we want to do, is get their attention with what they are reading. Now, there may be, as I mentioned, hiring managers that never read through this. We're not talking about them. We're talking about the people that do read through it. And I want you to have the best possible chance of getting in the room for that interview. To answer this question, though, from Anonymous, I don't have any specific tips for job interviews. I do have a series of video outlines that I've created on the interviewing process that have just never come to light. We've never gotten down the road of producing those, but it might be worthwhile to do. So I don't have any specific tips for job interviews for IT, but I will tell you that there are different types of interviews. A lot of interviews, and in fact, I would say every interview you go to will be an interview where they want to talk to you as a person. They want to get a personality feel for you as an individual, whether it's a phone interview, a broad interview that is not technical. If it's a technical interview, it's all about watching you. You are under the magnifying glass. They really want to see you. And I think we tend to be more stoic in an interview. Hello, it is very good to meet you. Thank you very much for having me into your beautiful facility. And we aren't really ourselves. But the best interviews I've ever been in and best interviews I've ever given are those that were more casual, where we were just talking, where we were just people talking about things. The thing you run into, and this is probably the biggest job interview tip I can give you, is you need to walk into the room with some stories. Because this is the hardest part of an interview, is what do you talk about? An interview is a bad date. By definition, it's a bad date. You don't know if they like you or not. You don't know if you like them or not. It's even worse than a bad date. Like how are we even sitting here? It's like sitting next to someone on the train. Like, hey, how's it going? Like you don't even want to talk really. But how do you get some interest? And if you've ever sat next to somebody on the train and they've got a little puppy with them, what is this puppy? Tell me about the puppy. You have a whole conversation about the puppy. Or they're wearing amazing socks. Like, what are these socks? What's that on them? Is that a fox? Do you have a fox on your socks? What is that? And then you have a conversation about their socks. These are just things we do. We need to have the same stories, but obviously we don't want to talk about puppies and we don't want to talk about our socks. But we need to talk about something. So I have a video that it talks about, it's a 30-minute video on how to get a job in IT with no experience. And that's probably the best thing I can point you to for tips on job interviews, because I talk about what stories can we bring into the job interview. I want to have something I've done technically. So let me give you an example. Something you could do after this is done today. Let me give you something you can do. A lot of the things we talk about in A+ are Windows Server, and especially Active Directory. And a lot of things, if you get a job in IT, you're going to be doing a lot with Active Directory. I don't care if you are someone who is working and trying to get through the process of maybe working in networking. Maybe you're working in security. Maybe you're working as a field service technician. I promise you will be touching Active Directory at some point in all of those. So one of the things I tell people is let's learn about Active Directory, but not just learn about Active Directory. Let's install it and let's see if it breaks when we install it. Spoiler alert, it's going to break when you install it. But the real key is how do you fix it? Now you may be wondering yourself, what does that have to do with an interview? The part that's important is that you document all of this. So there are downloads you can get from Microsoft right now that are for Windows Server. I don't care which version, doesn't matter. Download the latest one if you'd like, and set it up as a virtual machine on your system. And most everybody's system these days can run a minimal VM. And there is VirtualBox, VMware, Fusion is available for you Mac OS folks. I think there's a downloadable version of Parallels that is now free, or maybe it's VMware Fusion. One of those is free for personal use. So you can download those, install them, and then install a virtual machine of Windows Server and get it running. Get it running so that you can load up Active Directory and get it working. And I will tell you, here's another spoiler alert. If you don't want to know what's going to break, I'm about to tell you, so you can turn your volume down. DNS is not going to work properly for you because you're not going to know what to configure it with right out of the gate. And DNS is important for connecting devices to Active Directory, so it has to be right. Now, fortunately, it's not difficult to set up, but it's one of those things you have to set it up. And this is one of the biggest downfalls and problems you'll run into during the installation process. Certainly one of the biggest when you're installing it is DNS. So you install the thing, maybe you install even a separate Windows VM, and you try to get the Windows VM to talk to the Active Directory VM, and it's not talking. It's not joining the domain. It's not connecting. And if it doesn't connect to the domain, I can't manage it. So we're already stuck. We haven't even got the thing running yet. We're already broke it. Well, that's what you document. Loaded it up, connected it up. Here's the message I got. Cannot find domain server, whatever the error is. Document that. Now go through the process of figuring out why can't I connect to these things. And trust me, there are plenty of great videos out there that will give you some insight. There's a lot of great blog posts that tell you, here's the process. You can step through the process. You will find the problem. You will fix the problem. When you find and fix the problem, don't just keep going. Don't just continue on your way. Document what you did to find and fix the problem. Now, for those of us that have done this before, and for the thousands and thousands of people that have come before us, they've already run into this problem. They've already fixed it, and they've already done something, and they've gone about their merry way. But what you've done is now you've got a story. So you love these stories when you go to an interview and people say, tell me about a time when you've run into a problem and what you did to solve the problem. It's such a softball question. It's not even specific. Maybe they don't even want to know the answer really, but it's your chance to tell a story. Like, oh, I just did this past week. I installed the brand new version of Windows Server. Now, this should already pique their interest because, by the way, they're running the latest version of Windows Server, or at least a version of Windows Server in their environment. Like, I was installing Active Directory. I wanted to set up a sample lab for Active Directory. First thing I installed, you'll never believe the message I got. This is what it was. And you can go through the whole story of finding the problem, how you researched the issue, what you changed in your Windows Server to fix it, and what the result was. That's like a 5 to 10 minute conversation. Really not even a conversation. You're just talking. Here's what I did. Here's what it is. Here's the message I got. Here's the thing. Maybe you even have screenshots of it on your phone. That'd be ridiculous. Look, here's the thing I got. See my phone? This is what I got. Look at that right there. See right here where it says this thing? And you can even show them. That's the real important part, is showing the process you went through. They aren't even necessarily interested in the exact problem you had, but they want to see that you could take it from beginning to end, because that's what you're going to be doing every day, all day in IT. You're going to be running into a problem. You're going to be figuring out how to solve the problem, and then you're going to be implementing the fix. That's what we do. I think IT people, we love problems. I like logic problems. Is that weird? I don't think it is. I mean, they publish these, right? So if you are running, if you're doing mastermind type problems, if you're someone who likes the logic, the pure logic problems, maybe you like other types of board game-ish type problem, maybe like chess problems. Those are things that are very similar to the type of problems we run into in IT. So that's my recommendation. That's my tip for you, is have some stories. Maybe it's not Active Directory. Maybe you're walking into a networking interview. Well, have you installed maybe an open source firewall? Have you installed an open source intrusion prevention software? Have you run that on your own network? There's nothing more interesting than showing a report of what your firewall found on the internet. It's remarkable the attacks that your firewall will stop. And if you had a report of that, yeah, I installed a new firewall and installed pfSense, and I ran it on my network. You'll never believe what I found. Sound like a website trying to get clicks, and you won't believe what happened next. And you can show them, here's what I found. In 5 minutes after putting this device on my internet connection, I identified 75 different attacks. There it is. You now have a story. And not only did I identify those attacks, here's the report. How are they not hiring you right then? That's when you show up at the interview way more prepared than anyone else. So that's a very long answer to a very simple question, but it's just a few things you can do to help yourself when you get in the room. You've already done all this work to get to the interview. What, are you just going to show up unprepared? You need to be the best one in the room. You need to be the best person who's walked in for this job. There's a lot of ways that you can prepare yourself, and relatively simple. And by the way, kind of fun. Set up a VM with Windows Server. You're going to learn something. Set up a VM with pfSense. You're going to learn something. And I got 2 or 3 or 4 of those in that video of how to get a job in IT with no experience. Just an idea of things you can do to help yourself as you are going through this. Let's keep going with these questions. This is a question from Will. Will asks, how often should you study if you plan to take the test in 2 months? This is also a very common question. Thank you for asking it, Will. How often should you study if you plan to take the test in 2 months? So I don't have an answer for you first. There is no answer. Next question. No, the answer is there is no answer, because everybody studies in a different way. Everybody studies in a completely different process. People come to the table with a different set of life experiences, with a different set of technical experiences, and the study process will be different for them than it will be for you. So the question is more along the lines of, how do you know if you've studied everything if you're planning to take the test in 2 months? I just modified your question, Will. I am answering a question you did not ask. You're welcome. So what I would recommend is this right here. The exam objectives. The exam objectives tell you everything you need to know to pass this exam. Let me give you an example. We're going to go past the first couple pages. We're going to go straight to Domain 1.0, which is mobile devices. In Domain 1.0, there's a section 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and 1.4. In section 1.1, given a scenario, install and configure laptop hardware and components. And it says hardware/device replacement, and it lists specifically battery, keyboard/keys, random access memory, RAM, hard disk drive, HDD, solid state drive, SSD, migration. So you're migrating between a hard drive and an SSD. HDD, SSD replacement, wireless cards. So that's the whole section, is how do you plan for and install and replace these devices? And the last part of the section 1.1 is physical privacy and security components, including biometrics, whatever they are, and near field scanner features, whatever that is. So this is your first process, your first step in your studies. Do you know how to go through and identify and replace those components? You don't have to physically replace them for the exam, but you need to know the process. And for biometrics and near field scanners, what does that provide you with? So this is where you should be able to explain to yourself, to someone else, or as they say, the rubber duck test, where you just have a rubber duck there and you're talking to the rubber duck. You're talking to your stuffed bear. You're talking to something. You're talking to your phone and saying, hello, phone, let me talk to you about replacing a battery. And you can explain to the phone how to do that. Explain to your duck how to do that. That is the key. So now let's say you get through all of those. You feel pretty comfortable about those topics. Off to the next section. Well, I've got this set up so that it won't scroll. So off to the next section. So in the next section, we doing it now? We're not. Next section is compare and contrast the display components of mobile devices. So the types, LCD, IPS, TN, and VA. And then organic light emitting diode, OLED. And then all these other components. So again, we go through the same process. You go through each bullet and you learn the importance of these technologies and how they apply to this comparing and contrasting on mobile devices. So you go through each one of these one at a time, over and over and over, until you are very clear on exactly what you're expected to know when you walk into the room. The exams stay laser focused on those objectives. Very, 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 very rarely, if ever, do they go outside this objective list. Just traditionally, that's what they have done. So when I tell you to read through the objectives and use those bullets as your checklist, I'm doing this not just to give you a way to learn, but also make sure that you are studying the right things and that you're going to be prepared when you walk into the room. That's your real key. And I tell people this all the time, and it's absolutely the case. If you know every single one of those bullets and you can explain every single one of those bullets to someone else, you're going to pass your exam because they stay so close to those. So don't worry so much about how much time it takes. Worry more about, am I getting through the objectives? Because everybody's going to take a different amount of time. Some people that have been in this industry a long time can study up for a week, go take their exam, and they passed. It's kind of rare. Some people like me like to spend a lot of time really learning the topics. It might take 4, 5, or 6 months to learn everything. I would say the average for each of these exams is somewhere around 2 to 3 months for most people. So that should give you at least an idea of how long something like this should take. And maybe that can help you understand, can I get through all of this in a month, in 2 months, or whatever your time frame is for taking the exam. And it might even give you a little barometer to tell you, maybe I should be studying a little more than I'm studying right now. Maybe we can carve out an extra hour a day and get through this a little bit faster. And you'll be able to do that based on how long it takes you to get through the first few. And you'll realize, 2 months is not enough time. I need 3 months. Or maybe I can make it go faster. You've got some ideas of what you can do there. So that'll give you a little bit of an idea from a time frame what might work along those lines. Let's keep going through our list. We have more questions. Thank you so much, by the way, for submitting these questions. You can submit them at any time through the link that is on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA to do that. So let's see what we have here. This one's not an A+ question, but I'll take any question in the after show. Also from Anonymous, who asks, I'm trying to take the Network Plus exam before it expires. I'm almost done, and it doesn't expire. It retires. We'll talk about that. I'm almost done watching your videos, but I also want to read the book I just got and do virtual labs and practice exams. Good for you. Do you think I have enough time to finish up studying those resources before the N10008 retires? Again, I'm rewriting your question. So for those of you not familiar with the Network Plus exam, the Network Plus exam, the current version of the version that's been around for about 3 years is the N10008. That version of the exam retires in December, on December the 20th specifically. So you can take the N10008 all the way up to December the 20th. And on December the 20th, it goes away forever, and you'll never be able to take the N10008 exam ever again. There is a new version of the Network Plus exam that has already been released, the N10009. Just add one to the end. So now we have 2 different Network Plus exams that are out there, the N10008 and the N10009. The N10009 hasn't even been out for a month yet. So it's relatively new. There's not a lot of books. There's not a lot of study materials. We're still putting out videos on it. They'll be done shortly. But the point to this is that the N10009 is so new that I personally would not recommend studying for that version of the exam. I would recommend studying for the one that Anonymous is taking, the N10008. The question is, do you think I have enough time to finish up and study those resources before December the 20th? Well, we're here in July, August, September, October, November, December, 5 months away. That's plenty of time to study for the Network Plus exam. Plenty. You need 2 to 3 months on average to study for that exam. You got 5. You could pretty much take twice the amount of time almost and still be able to make that time frame. But the key to doing that is you must take the exam by December the 20th and pass it by December the 20th. Not just take it, you got to pass it by December the 20th. Here's your challenge, of course. What if you take it on December the 20th and you fail? Now you have to start over again. Fortunately, it's not all the way over, but you have to restart your studies with a whole new version of the exam. So don't wait until December the 20th to take your exam. Take it before that, so if you need to do a retake, you can fit that one in there. Also, I'll tell you, and many people don't realize this, when you pass your N10008, you're certified for 3 years. So a lot of people say, well, why would I take the exam on December the 20th when the exam is retired on December the 20th? What good is that? Well, the good part is if you pass, your certification is good for 3 years. Once you're certified, doesn't matter what they do with the exam. They could make an exam retire every day if they wanted to. Doesn't affect you. You're already certified. So I try to make sure people are aware that someone who's certified doesn't have to keep track of what the exams are doing anymore. You're already certified. So that's the important part. get the exam done before then. There's a vastly more information available for the Intent 008 right now than there is for the 009. So if I was taking the Network Plus exam myself right now, if I was starting my studies for the Network Plus exam right now, I would be studying the Intent 008. There's tons of books available. There's tons of information available. It's no harder or easier than the Intent 009, quite honestly. Not much of a difference between those two from a topic or difficulty perspective. So Intent 008 works for me. I think that's what you should focus on too. I think that would be a good one to go through. And if I was, like I said, if I was studying for this one right now, that's what I would study for as well. Let's do some more questions in here. Again, if you'd like to submit a question, follow the link on your screen. Go to professormester.com/QA and send me the question you would like me to consider. Let's keep going. Here's a good A+. Let's flip back to the A+ questions again. It's from Will. Will asks, should I study for Core 1 and then take the test and then study for Core 2, take the test, or should I study for both at the same time and take both tests close to each other? I think we already know where this one's going. If you've been here for the last hour, could you imagine studying for a completely separate exam at the same time and taking them both on the same day? That is, it's not a high percentage pass. It's not your best possible way to study for this exam. The Core 1 exam, the Core 2 exams don't have a lot of overlap between them. The Core 1 exam objectives pretty much are a standalone exam. The Core 2 exam objectives, pretty much a standalone exam. Not a lot of things between those two that are similar, which is good, quite honestly, because you can study for one or the other. You can take them in any order. So let's say we're studying for Core 1, focus on Core 1. Study all the objectives for Core 1. Learn every bullet that's in your Core 1 exam objectives. Take some Core 1, watch the Core 1 videos, read a Core 1 book, go through the Core 1 Q&A. Do everything you need to do for Core 1. Go take the Core 1 exam, pass the Core 1. Then shift all of your gears over to Core 2. Trying to take both of these at the same time is probably only best attempted by someone who's already been in the industry a long time and is already basically familiar with these things. Maybe they're just taking the A+ because there's a requirement from their job to do so, but they already know all of this stuff. And what they're trying to do is just get the cert. Maybe they'll take them both on one day. I get a lot of messages in my Discord and I get a lot of emails from people that said, I made a mistake. I tried to study for both of these and take both of these on the same day. It's going to take as much time to study for both at the same time as it would be to study for each of them individually. There's no difference in how much you study. So why are you trying to cram them all into one day's worth of chaos, of fire? That is just painful to even think about. There's a lot of topics on these exams. There's a reason these are two separate exams. So don't put yourself in that position, especially since there's no value. There's nothing special you get for passing them both on one day. There's nothing extra you get by doing that. There's no benefit by doing that versus one at a time. So I say do one at a time. If I was going to take these today, I wouldn't take them both in the same day just because it's a lot to do. I'll take one on one day. I'll take one on another day. I think I'm fine with that. Probably don't have to study at this point for it. I probably would look through the objectives one time. But then I don't want to take them both at the same time on the same day. That just seems like a lot. There are people that do it. I'm not going to say no one does it. There are people that do this. And there are people that do pass when they take both on the same day. What I'm saying is that it is probably not going to be your highest percentage chance of passing. That if you want to maximize your chance of coming out of these exams with a pass, take them one at a time. It will save you money. It will save you time. It will save you nervousness and stress. So don't do that. Make sure that you take them one at a time. You're focusing on what you need. You earn both of those. It will be a much better path for you. Trust me. You don't go to Disney in the summer. You don't take both exams at the same time. There's just simple things in life that you need to follow through. That's what those are. And what am I going to do? I'm going to go to Disney in the summer. Sometimes we just can't help ourselves. Next on our list, another question. This is, there's a lot of good stuff you guys are sending in. Thank you so much for the questions, by the way. This is a pretty good one. It comes up quite a bit. Radu asks, probably been asked already, which is fine. But on questions that have 4 answers and I answer only 3, do I still get points? Or do I get no points? Do we get partial credit? Do we not get partial credit? How do we know? Let's talk about this, because this comes up quite a bit. I'm going to refer to a CompTIA website for performance-based questions. CompTIA has a frequently asked questions file for just performance-based questions. So all I can really talk to currently are performance-based questions. This is a bunch of questions about performance-based questions. All I did was Google for CompTIA performance-based questions FAQ. That's what I typed in. That's how we got here. It's on the CompTIA website somewhere. That's why I Googled it. So the question asks, at the very bottom, is partial credit given if I answer part of a performance-based question correctly? So again, this is just for PBQs. And the answer is, there may be questions for which partial credit is offered. This also says, and I'm going to put it in there, may not be questions for which partial credit is offered. They're saying there may, not saying there is. There might be. There might be a performance-based question that we give you partial credit on, or maybe we won't, but we're not going to tell you. It says, however, exam questions and their scoring are confidential. So you will never, never, never know whether we gave you partial credit or not. Which that's not what it says. It says, so no further information can be provided regarding which questions may offer partial credit. I'm translating for you, and it really says, you will never, never, never know if we gave you partial credit or not. So this is really the interesting part of this, is that they sort of tell you it's possible. So what you're saying is there's a possibility. That is what they're saying. But we know what that means. There's also chance we might not get partial credit. And it doesn't address multiple choice-based questions. Now, fortunately, most of the questions that you will get on your exam that are multiple choice will have one answer. But occasionally on your exam, there might be 2 or 3 questions that say pick 2 or pick 3. Fortunately, traditionally, CompTIA has told you how many of the answers you should be choosing, which is great. Because when it just says pick all that apply, and there's 8 things there, well, do I pick 5 or do I pick 2? Like, it doesn't help me. Fortunately, they're a little bit easier when you're reading the exam, because it tells you pick 2 or pick 3. But what they don't tell you, and they didn't tell you in this frequently asked questions file, and they don't tell you ever, is do you get partial credit? And the ultimate answer is, I don't know. I don't know. And they're not going to tell you. So what I try to tell people, and I think this is more of a human nature thing, I try to do it too, is I want to reverse engineer the entire exam. I want to know everything about the way that it works. And the reality of CompTIA exams is you will never, ever know. The final results on the exam don't tell you what questions you got right and what questions you got wrong. All they do is tell you, here are topics that you missed. It doesn't tell you what questions those topics were in. It just tells you, here are the exam topics you missed. And they don't tell you, we gave you partial credit, we didn't give you partial credit. You never have a way to know. And according to what we do know of the exam, each question is worth a different number of points, which means you don't even know how many questions you really need to get right to pass the exam. You can't reverse engineer this thing. I will tell you that we do have pretty solid evidence from people who have taken the exam and talked to us that they went all the way through the exam and they answered all the multiple choice questions. They don't know how many they got right and how many they got wrong, but they answered all of them. And they were going back to redo or go back through the performance-based questions and begin answering them, and they didn't get a chance Clock ran out of time. But they passed. And I think this is an important thing to keep in mind, is that we often think the performance-based questions, they must be worth a lot of points. This must be a make or break. And I see people all the time saying, I didn't pass my exam. It's because I didn't do well on the performance-based questions. But in this person's particular example, he didn't have to answer any of the performance-based questions at all. In fact, didn't. He got all of them wrong. Still passed their exam. So don't worry so much about what type of question you're getting. Don't worry so much about what the questions are worth. Don't worry, do I get partial credit or do I not get partial credit? Because in the big picture, in this big blue world picture that we are looking at, you will never know. And you have no way of going back and figuring it out. We will go through our entire life never knowing how many points that question was worth. It's a mystery of the universe. So don't worry yourself with it. Your goal should be to learn everything that's listed in those exam objectives, because if you know that, it doesn't matter how they ask the question. It doesn't matter what format the question is in. It doesn't matter how they try to change around the words of the question. It doesn't matter. So that's the real important part. Don't focus on how they're grading the exam, because you have no control over that. Control the things that you can control, which is your knowledge of the exam objectives. And if you do that, as I mentioned, you're going to pass your exam. It really doesn't matter how they ask you the questions. Let's keep going. We got some time before the top of the hour. Let's get through a couple more questions that you have submitted to me. This sort of fits into that same question that we just asked from Jonathan, who says, do you recommend doing the multiple choice questions first and the performance-based questions last in the exam? This is for both 1101 and 1102. And let's talk about this real quick, because that's how the exam is set up. When you sit down for the exam, the first handful of questions you get on your exam will be performance-based questions. As I mentioned to you, performance-based questions are questions that are presented in a way other than multiple choice. Multiple choice, we understand. There's a question and we pick A, B, C, or D. That's multiple choice. But what if it's a matching question, a drag and drop question, a question where they put you to a command prompt and ask you to perform a function? Maybe they give you a question that you have to put things in a particular order. There's different ways to present this information on the screen. We did one at the beginning of our study group, for example, that was more of a matching question. So there, you will get a handful of those at the beginning. And I think a perfectly reasonable strategy is to skip them. Now, why would I skip questions on the exam? Well, first thing is that CompTIA allows you to skip questions. Not all industry certification exams allow you to do this. For example, Cisco, once you answer a question and you click go to the next one, you can't go backwards. You're done. You just answered that one. You can just forget about it. You can never go back and check your work. You have to keep going forward on the Cisco exams. And those exams may change depending on what you previously answered. So fortunately, when you start a CompTIA exam, all questions are already in front of you. You can jump to any question on the exam at any time. It makes it very easy to jump around to wherever you want to go. And so a very good strategy is to skip over performance-based questions because they are more involved. What I really recommend is reading through the question, understanding, oh, here's a performance-based question. Oh, it's matching. It's about network protocols. Let's go to the next one. This one is a drag and drop that's talking about security. This one's you can go through and at least get a flavor for what they're asking about, because that goes and fires some synapse in your brain. It sticks back there while you skip over it. But you skip over them. I just skipped over those three. Now multiple choice-based questions. I'm comfortable with those. Let's go through all those. What's interesting, though, is as you go through the multiple choice-based questions, you'll get topics that may be very similar or match the things that are in the performance-based questions. We see this all the time on multiple choice-based questions in general, where you might get one question that talks about FTP, or it talks about DHCP, or it talks about a port number. And then later on in the exam, you get a question about DHCP and you think, oh, wait, I got a question on DHCP. I remember that question, and that question allows me to answer this question right. So the exam itself can give you hints. The exam itself can give you points. And once you go through all the multiple choice-based questions and you circle back to the performance-based questions, which tend to be more involved, now you have this foundation of technical things you've been asked that now might help you answer questions with these more involved performance-based questions. So I do recommend, my personal preference is to skip performance-based, do the multiple choice, and come back to it. But it does require you to have a very close eye on the clock. You don't want to run out of time. And some people don't like to do it that way. Some people prefer going through the performance-based questions. I feel like you could get wrapped around the axle a little bit, though. I feel like they can drag you down, and then you get involved in this drag and drop question, and you're getting confused, and you end up spending more time there than you really need. I kind of like getting through the multiple choice, especially now that I've heard more and more people talk about, I got through all the multiple choice, I never got to the performance-based questions, and I still passed. So I think that's my approach, is you skip them and you come back to them. Other people, maybe not. Pick the way that works best for you. There is no right way. The right way is the way that's best for you. That's the right way. And your right way may be different than my right way. I'm not locked into this. It's not that big of an issue. You just need to find the way that works best for you. Let's go through some more questions. We got time. Let's get another couple going here. Other ones that are in this list. There's a lot. There's a lot going on these questions. I can almost read into the stories that are behind the questions, and I'm trying to do a little bit of that as we go through this, and really feel like what the difference is. There was a question. We're going to come back to a couple of these. One of these is this one's just sort of an administrative one, which is from Steven, that asks, do you have to be live for the CEU credit, the continuing education unit credit, or is there a cutoff after the show? You do not have to be live, although I will say, let me see if I can find this on the CompTIA website, CEU. There is a frequently asked questions for the CEU where they talk about receiving these, and I don't know that I can find the page offhand for submitting the CEUs, but I found it the other day, and I think it's an important consideration, is that if it's a live event, you have to show that you were registered for it in some way. Well, we don't really do registration, so that doesn't fit. If you're watching it on a replay, you have to provide documentation from that organization saying that you watched the replay. And this is something relatively new for CompTIA. CompTIA used to just take your word for it. Now they want documentation that shows it. Now, fortunately, we've been providing emails with our digital signature for years. So it's a perfectly reasonable documentation for what we're doing. So if you are watching this in the replay and you want to receive that continuing education unit credit, you have to follow the instructions I gave somewhere in that first hour of the live stream. And then you have to wait for me to send you that email. But you need that email with that documentation. And if you want to keep the attachment to the email, which is the digital signature, then that helps you out as well if they ever want to edit that. So that's why I always tell people, make sure you are submitting your CEU request if that's what you need, because CompTIA wants you to have that documentation. So whether you're watching it live or whether you're watching it on the replay, you have to send me the email anyway, and I have to send you the email back. So just do it that way and you're covered. Doesn't matter. Everybody's happy when you do it that way. So that's my recommendation. And there's no cutoff. You can go watch videos as long as they follow the requirements for the CEU, which are pretty broad, quite honestly. You can watch videos from last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago if you want to. The problem you run into, you need 30 CEUs to renew your A+. 5 of those can be webinar-based, webinar category CEUs. 5. So as much as I would love you to watch 20 of these live streams, and you're more than welcome to, you can only use 5 of them to apply towards your renewal. You have to get other CEUs in different categories. Well, that's by design. They don't want you to have to watch a bunch of videos and that's it. I think most people, though, are renewing with the CertMaster CE these days. They're not really doing a lot of the collecting of CEUs anymore. But I'm more than happy to give them to you. I think a lot of people still do. I just think it's less than it used to be. Other questions. Let's keep going through this list. We've answered a number of these, so if I'm not getting your question, some of these are repeated as we go through because you didn't know what other people submitted, but that's okay. We'll put it in our list for these. So those of you that are asking, how much time should I allocate? We've answered that one. And any last minute tips? My last minute tips always when studying for these exams, use your exam objectives as your final checklist. That's what you need to do. And I say last minute, it's really the last week. I've had people send me emails that say, I'm taking my exam in an hour. What should I do? Like, you should probably drive over to the exam center, or you should get your setup ready to go at home because you're out of time. There's nothing more you can do at that point. A week before, I can help you. Go to the exam objectives checklist. That's what you do. Always, always, always. So absolutely. There were other people who were saying, my professor, and Robert, I'm giving you this voice for some reason. My professor said you usually get a code. You usually get a code at the end of your video I can input into CompTIA for credit. Is that true? It is not. There you go. We talked about CEUs earlier. We talked about the process. You have to listen somewhere in the first hour. I give you specific instructions you have to follow. You have to send it to me, not to CompTIA. And that. So that's why. So absolutely, that's an important thing to keep in mind. Last minute for me would be a week, and that's your exam objectives or your last minute tips. Other questions. Let's keep going through this list. You guys have such great questions, by the way. Thank you for sending these. I know I keep saying that, but I really do appreciate it. It'd be kind of a boring last hour of the study group as we're just sitting here on our phones. Yeah. So how's your day going? Mine's fine. Wish a question would come in. Instead, I have more than I could deal with. So thank you. Next question. Oh, let's do this one. This one comes up from time to time. I've sort of spoken to it, but I think it's one to talk about. I get this quite a bit. This is from Anonymous, who says, already have the best IT job in the world. We're all jealous. But I have 2 months to get both exams to keep my job. Is this time realistic? Well, this becomes a bit of a challenge. Now you got 2 months to take 2 exams that on average take 3 months each just to finish. Now you've got some benefit already because you mentioned you have an IT job currently. So maybe there is something that can really help you along those lines. You've already got some time built into this. I think you have some knowledge you're bringing to the table with that. So you have 2 months to get these exams. This actually, I think, is doable in your scenario, given that completely unsubstantiated perspective of your history. But I think that is doable with the right study habits. And this really is every waking moment you are studying. If you are eating a sandwich, you're studying. If you are sitting at home, you're studying. You used to have an Xbox. You don't have one anymore. You used to have Steam installed on your computer. It's not there anymore. You used to know people. You don't know them anymore, at least not for 2 months. You got a lot of work to do. But your real key is going to be working through the exam objectives. And again, that is going to be what you use. I don't know that I would force you into reading through those really thick study books. I think that may slow you down a little bit. And a lot of them tend to go off topic a bit. They go outside of the scope almost always. But I think sticking to the objectives is going to be the important part. And I think probably your best bet is go to the objectives, use this as your checklist, use my videos or someone else's, but I think mine are specially built for this. Mine are built for speed. Mine are built for speed and content. So we're focusing on the exam objectives, but one of the challenges you run into with this, and I sure do, is figuring out where the best, I guess the real problem is, how do I squeeze all of that into one place? How do I squeeze it all into a short time frame? And this is really what we're trying to focus on. Is 2 months is not a lot of time. So stick to the objectives, go through the videos. Maybe when you get to a topic you don't completely understand, that's where you go into a flurry of Google. You're hit this point where I talked about a TPM and you're like, I need to know more about this. Let me spend 10 minutes finding every resource I can on broadly what a TPM can do for me. And that's what we need to do. Is really focus on that single topic for that 10 minutes. Okay, now I really understand it. Now I see how this is used. Check it off the list. Go to the next thing on your exam objectives. You can do that in 2 months if you follow that process. You absolutely can. One of the things you're probably going to be doing is cutting a few corners to get there. You're not going to be spending a lot of time going through the details of Active Directory and the history of Microsoft and how Landman server started, and then we went from Land Manager 2.0, and you're not going to go into that history. The exam objectives don't go into that history. You're not going to go into that history. So I would not spend time with that. You stick to the objectives, and I think you can do it. I know it's aggressive. It is challenging. Time is going to be important. So if you have a calendar you keep, if you've ever thought to yourself, I should really do better with my time management, now is it. This is the reason. So you need to do better with your time management. When you, an hour extra a night, not a big deal. And if you're reading through dinner, you're reading, in times you normally wouldn't be studying, normally instead of going to Reddit and spending time reading nonsense, a lot of Reddit's nonsense, not all of it, most of it. Instead of doing that, you should be reading something relating to an objective. So that's what I would recommend. There's time in the day to do this. There absolutely is, but you need to apply and have a strategy and focus on that strategy. And I think you'll be okay. I think you will. I think that can make it happen. Other questions. I know we're at the top of the hour. We can fit one more in. I think I got more. Some other ones here. I don't want to get through something too crazy. Okay. Here's one. I've gotten a couple of these that have come in. I think they're worth talking about. Again, from Anonymous, who's very busy, who says, my question is, what advice do you have for me? Not just undoubtedly others. I literally have 2 or 3 other questions in my group of questions here that ask this very thing, that talk about retaining information. This is probably one of the biggest challenges on this exam. So we got course notes. Here's some course notes for you. Let me pull them up on the screen here. So the course notes, they're big. There's lots of notes. Look at all these bullets, lots of notes. There's tables, there's charts, there's images, there's pictures. They're all in here. Just tons of stuff. Just 2 pages of this is almost overwhelming. There's tons of data in here. How do you handle remembering everything? And I really think everybody's a little bit different. This question from Anonymous says, I can read and understand something, but to retain it and apply it outside the scope of what I do normally. And I don't think that's really different than most of us, quite honestly. I think most of us work that way. A lot of things that we do, we just have to do it over and over and over again, and we get it. How many of you open up your driver's manual when you go to drive a car? We don't. We've just done it so many times. We don't even think about it anymore. We're already on the road halfway to work, and we don't even remember starting the car and backing out of the driveway. We just do it all the time. It's just second nature, and we're already doing something else. And there's a song on, and we're singing. We're doing this. I'm on the phone, and we don't even think about it. So it needs to be that level of I'm not even thinking about it when we go through this. So if you go through a section of and I think going back to the exam objectives is a great way to do this. Go to that section, learn everything about that section, break it down for yourself. You're going to go to the next section, the next section, the next section, but occasionally go back to one of these. Like before you start your studies, let's do this. Let's go look at our exam objectives. Got them right here somewhere. Here's our exam objectives from earlier. So let's say we went through that section 1.0 or 1.1, and we went through the whole part about migrating hard drives and SSDs and biometrics and near field scanner and all that. And eventually we get to section 2 and we're going through port numbers. But before we start our port number exercise, let's go back and read through that again. Do I really remember? Can I still put a check mark next to battery? Can I still put a check mark next to keyboard? Can I still put a check mark next to the HDD SSD replacement? So you should be revisiting these. You don't go by it once, think you got it, and you're on your way. The learning process is something you do over and over and over again. There was something I was reading earlier that said, should I go through your videos again? Like, well, if you need to, yeah, absolutely. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you go through these objectives until you really get them down? But I think the exam objectives can be very, very useful to really retaining that info. And I think if you are someone who needs that constant check-in with those materials, someone who wants to constantly be reminded of those topics, maybe you're making flashcards as you go through. Either physical flashcards, maybe you're doing Anki or some other type of online flashcard. You're creating your own knowledge base in the flashcards. And before you start your studies, before you go into the process, you're now referencing back those flashcards. Anki is really good for this, by the way. If you've never used that, it's an open source flashcard program, Anki. And they have a method where when you're presented with a flashcard and you got it, you can tell it, I'm good now. You don't have to show that one to me again. And then you can go, then you're left with a smaller grouping to memorize. And then you can memorize that one. When you get to something, I've seen this one 4 times. I got it. Go into the I know it bucket and it shrinks it down again. So I think that's another way that you can train yourself using your own materials to really retain the information. Is just do it over and over and over again until you really got it. I think from, if you talk to any networking person, they will tell you. If we go back to our exam objectives, this is the section I probably get the most number of questions about are these darn port numbers. The gosh darn port numbers. Pardon my language. People talk all the time about these port numbers. And they are trying to figure out, how am I going to memorize all these crazy numbers? They're all arbitrary. None of them make sense. They don't match anything. They're one's 22, one's 143, another one's 137. What? How do people deal with this in the world? And the way we deal with this, we've just done it for so long, it's automatic. We're getting in our car, we're starting the car, we're backing out of the driveway, we're driving to work, we haven't even thought about it. But anybody who's a network professional or even just system professional, IT professional in general, they know about 3389. You know about port 80. You know about port 443. They just become a natural part of what you know. And I think we don't give ourselves enough credit. We've memorized phone numbers. We've memorized addresses. We've memorized combinations for a combination lock. We memorize stuff all the time. It's just another one of those. And I think that we don't give ourselves enough credit for being able to do that. We think it's somehow impossible. But maybe that's a perfect place for a flashcard. As I mentioned, even we would have a flashcard and it says port 20 and 21 is FTP. FTP, also known as the file transfer protocol. This is the protocol we would use to transfer files across multiple diverse systems. There's your flashcard. Boom, done. So there's an example of always having that information available, always going back to it, always referring to what's there, and never knowing it and leaving it. You always have to revisit. It's always a part of learning, is revisiting and becoming more familiar with it. And I think that helps you on the exam as well. So I think if you're through the process of going through this exam and trying to get all of this stuff in your brain, it's in there. You're putting, every time you go through that flashcard, every time you go through that content again, every time you read through it, you're writing it into your brain a little bit into more permanent marker. You know how you take that pen, it's almost out of ink, and you just, instead of writing it once, you write it 3 times so that you can read it. That's what we're doing. We're just writing it over and over and over and over again. That's the real key. is working through that piece of it. And I think for you, for any of us that have problems with retention, and we all do to some degree, that's one of the easiest ways to do it. Not many people out there that could just read it once and they're done. There are people like that. There's weird brains out there that can do that kind of thing. Vast majority of us, we got to work at it. I'm exactly where you are from that perspective. It takes me months to take an industry exam because I not only want to really understand it, and that takes time, but now I have to keep going back to it till I really get it. Other people, I think, also really focus on trying to not just read it, they like to do it. So if you're having a problem with retention after reading a book, maybe you should do more labs. Do hands-on. There's something about typing the ping command and pinging an IP address. Ping 1.1.1.1, go. And viewing the information coming back. There's something about that process that locks it in. We were talking about the synapse firing. It locks it into your brain. It writes it in there. You've done it. You have physically manifested that command into the physical world, and now you've seen the results of that on your screen. That's a different learning process than simply reading about ping in a book. So don't focus just on one form of learning. Watch videos. Did that work for you? Read a book. Did that work for you? Do something hands-on with the lab. Did that work for you? How about Q&A? All of these work together, and they teach you in different ways, and they teach you in a different style. And I think it gets locked into your brain in a different way. And I think they all build on each other. So if one of those four types, those are the four types: a book, a video, labs, Q&A. Those are your big four. Those are the top four you should focus on. If you're only doing one, try one of the other three. If you're only doing three of those, try the fourth one. There should be a mix of those that make perfect sense for you. I think that's really where you should focus, is making that happen. And you'll find the right combination for you. Everybody's a little different. Some people like videos. Some people like books. Some people combo these. Some people have a different process. We'll find the process that works for you. Stick with that one, and you'll be able to retain it. It'll start sticking. You'll realize, wait, I do know these port numbers. Wait, I do understand that process. Oh, wait, we did go through that process before. And I think the Q&A is the last thing you do, because that's what gives you that positive feedback. Hey, I just went through this Q&A and I got 70% of them right. I think a lot of people focus on the 30% they got wrong. And I think that's the wrong place to go. You got 70% of this right. You're doing a great job with retention. Focus now on the 30%. Move that bar up a little bit more. So very often it's not really reality we have to deal with. We're fighting ourselves. We're fighting our own brains. We're fighting our own doubts. We're fighting our own self-worth. And the reality is, once you learn it, you got it. A lot of these things, I think, and this has been true in my career anyway in IT, is that something I haven't done seems impossible. There's been so many projects I've been put on, like, okay, you're now on this project where we are working on this new imaging software. And I'm thinking to myself, I know nothing about imaging. Why am I on this project? I am never going to be able to do this. And we get into the project, I grab documentation, I start reading up on it, I start working with the software, maybe I go to a training class they're sending me to. And about a week into the project, 2 weeks into the project, a month into the project, I'm thinking to myself, why was I so worried about this? This isn't that hard. You just have to know it. You just have to get comfortable with it, understand what it's doing. It was much harder. The fear of the unknown was much bigger than the actual reality was. And I think we run into that on these exams as well. Don't worry about the fear of the unknown. Don't worry about the things you don't know. Worry about the things you do know. And you're just going to build on those. And ultimately, you'll have all the knowledge you need to sit down. You'll know all the exam objectives. You'll pass the exam. You're off to the next thing. This will be in your rearview mirror. You'll be talking about, oh, that was an easy exam. That was nothing to it. Because you knew it. Because you did all the hard work. You did all of the heavy lifting that got you the knowledge you needed to walk into the room, be perfectly comfortable on the exam, pass the content, and now you're off to the next big thing. And that's the real key to IT in my book. That's what you're going to be doing for most of your career. You're going to be collecting knowledge. You're going to be using that knowledge, and then you're going to be leveling up yourself and going to the next thing. Keep doing that. I think you're going to be just fine. Well, I think that brings us to the end of another study group, but don't worry, we got another one this week. Come on back on Thursday. We're doing this live on a Tuesday. Come on back on Thursday. I have all new questions for you. I know they're all new because I haven't written them yet. So they will absolutely be all new when you show up on Thursday for the Core 2 study group. That's going to be the one that we do on Thursday. And if you want to come back next week, we have our Network Plus study group and our Security Plus study group next week. If you want to know when the next live stream is going to be, you can always find it on our calendar on the website, professormesser.com/calendar. Click the events link on the top of the screen or follow the events channel that's in our Discord at professormesser.com/Discord. If you like this video, we would love it, and we would love you forever if you gave it a thumbs up. And we would love you even more if you subscribe to our channel. There's only so much love to go around, though. So you got to go quick and subscribe before it all goes away. That is the best way to also get in touch with us when we are not here doing a live stream is on our Discord. We'd love to see you there. That's where I'm going after this. If you haven't joined us there, you can find us at professormesser.com/Discord. Hopefully we'll see you on Thursday as well. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next time on the A+ study group. Thanks, everybody.